So what is the core and how important is it? Does it, having a strong core, reduce the chance of injury? Does having a weak core cause injury? Does getting your core stronger get you back from injury? The reality is that a lot of these things are extrapolations from information that we found, and again, a lot of things sort of continue to manifest over time, but is there really any truth in it? The reality, if we look at back pain as an example, is that we know that all exercise helps back pain according to, on average, results on research, and therefore the types of core exercises along the lines of, say, Pilates and such like are effective for back pain, but they are no better than any other form of exercise on average, as the research finds. And the interesting thing is that the core is sort of always looked upon as this area which you've got to train. It's not working well, it's not timing well. Well, the problem is that the research shows that this is not actually the case. I mean, the core consists of, mainly people talk about the transverse abdominis, but it's actually the transverse abdominis, which is a deep abdominal layer like a corset. You've got your internal and external obliques, and you've got the multifidus example in your lower back. And these are muscles which are slow twitch fibers, they are more postural type muscles. But if we look at postural muscles as a rule across the body, they don't work in isolation, they work alongside stuff. So the whole issue with the core is this idea of trying to target and somewhat isolate the core. And they talk about in Pilates, contract the pelvic floor, which will cause a co-contraction of transverse abdominis, and then do that to about 25%, because any greater you'll start to get rectus abdominis and you'll start to tense up in other muscles, and that's supposed to be a bad thing. Well, the problem is that is it a bad thing? Should we be trying to isolate a muscle? Because in real life, if you pick something up heavy, what do people do? They brace. What do powerlifters do? They brace. What does anyone do who does anything strenuous? They brace. Bracing is actually a way of actually tightening the core to protect the back. That's why powerlifters do it. If they're lifting something heavy and they don't brace, they're more likely to get injured. They're more likely to not control their core. And it's more about putting load on certain structures. So therefore the bracing thing is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's frowned upon within the core stability kind of elements. The other thing is that, in isolation, even without really heavy weights, do you actually work the muscles in isolation? Never. So should you train them in isolation? Why? It doesn't make any sense. Because if you're going to use them alongside other muscles, surely you should train them in the same way. And therefore, targeting them in isolation or trying to target them in isolation doesn't really make any sense. I mean, a good example is, I remember years ago, I had a little ultrasound scanner. We put it on to detect how much contraction of muscles I was getting in my abdominal region. And they were looking to try and see how much contraction level I was targeting to just get the transverse abdominis contracting without the obliques kicking in and the rectus kicking in. So we put it over and you could see the layers, and therefore you could see when they were working. And what they found is at 25%, everything was working. So straight away, it already defies the logic behind that. I dropped it a bit, and it was still working everything. Eventually they said, hold it there, that's working, just the transverse abdominis. I looked up and said, I'm just breathing, I'm not doing anything. So then you're like, how effective an exercise is that if the load you're putting into the muscles is therefore breathing? It just shows you that it's a bit of a fallacy, really. Now the interesting thing is that if we look at research on is core stability effective and what does it do, it just doesn't really quite fit. Again, you'd be much better off doing functional movements that are much more real life based and more about the elevation of load over time. Because again, the core stuff doesn't necessarily progress the load. So if you're doing things that are involving a lot of load, then of course you want to be making sure that you're progressing the load and getting stronger. And we know that strength training does reduce injury, but core stability exercise is more around the control aspects. And it's not that control is bad, but what's wrong with working control with load and over time increasing load? There's no way in the world that, Eddie Hall has a weak core. However, if you watch him train, would he ever do some core stability exercises? It's highly doubtful. Lifting a big old heavy weight in a deadlift or in another move enables the core to have to work alongside the other muscles. And if the core is not working well, then the back is going to lose position and you're going to maybe hurt yourself. So, of course, this means that his core will be strong, not because of core stability exercise, just for lifting a heavy weight. That just progressed over time. Obviously, you don't lift above what you can tolerate, but you build the weight over time, like any other form of exercise. So, if you think about it, if you're doing a deadlift, guess what? Your core is working. So therefore, it's a core exercise. So therefore, deadlifts are core stability or core exercises. But they're working alongside other stuff. And they're more aligned to functional movements to some degree. Versus a lot of core exercises are a bit weird. They don't necessarily relate to real life. Now that doesn't mean they're irrelevant. I use them with patients. Certainly if a patient's a very low level patient, they can't do a lot of stuff, they can't do more functional movements, they're in a lot of pain or they're very deficient, then it's a nice place to start, but it should not be the be all and end all. From that point, you should elevate the exercises to make them harder as they get better at it and advance it more and more and more. So yeah, so next time you think about core stability, don't think about it in the old-fashioned sense. Think about your core works anyway. Think about the core is not as important as maybe people make out in isolation. And just think about progressing load over time.